Welcome back, everybody, to a roundtable Q roundup. I forget. I usually just call this the quarter notes or the Q3 of the best, the worst, and the most surprising of Prog. I've got some of my favorite people to help me out within this. So we're hoping that another individual will join us. So if another person pops in at some point, do not be alarmed. They are invited into this party. So why don't we go around? My computer is showing me in the middle, so we'll start here and then go around. So we'll start with Matt is the one that's on my right, your left.
Sounds good. Well, I'm excited because I missed Q2. I was like devastated. It took me all of Q3 to recover. So now we're here and I've made it somehow miraculously. Just swept in at the last moment. But anyway, I'm Matt O'Leary. I have a channel called Matt O'Leary Music. I kind of am where prog and modern alternative rock meet. Cover a lot of modern, what would be called maybe indie prog, alternative rock, but really a pretty eclectic mix of different things. And I like to think I bring a little something different to this group, as we all do in our own little ways. So yeah, that's my thing.
Amazing. Yeah. So then we'll go to this one right here, who is Nathan.
All right, I'm Nathan. I have my channel Nathan on Shuffle, which covers all kind of prog topics. I do reaction videos with my wife where I'm introducing her to new prog music and do reviews and roundups of like what's happening in the prog world, news style stuff. So just my specialty is just in the classic symphonic prog that's coming out, and just have a lot of fun talking about it on the channel. So
Amazing. Yeah. And we will go to Ian.
Ooh,
Right
I'm down there today.
Yeah.
Much like Matt, I unfortunately missed the Q2, and much like Matt, it took me all of Q3 to recover from it. I nearly missed this one as well because for the exact same reason I missed last time's, I could have missed it for the exact same reason. I was like, nah, screw Manchester, I'm staying at home today. So much more fun for me this way. But yes, hello, my name's Ian. I run a small channel called Rhyme Signatures where I mostly focus on reviewing newer releases within the sort of like prog and metal sort of space, as it were. I generally speaking lean towards the heavier sort of stuff, your death metals, your doom metals, your black metals, and basically anything sort of progressive adjacent to that. Not the exclusive territory that I deal with, as I do love the classics just as much as anyone else does, but my tastes are a little bit more on the harder side of things. So if you're in for a mood of throwing up the devil horns, you know where to look.
Amazing. And rounding out our, I would say quartet, but I'm also a part of this. So synctet, I think. We've got Travis, who's right over there.
Hi, I'm Losho. I have a channel called Long Words on Song Words. I'm also a musician, and you can find me on Spotify, Apple Music, and Bandcamp under the Borealia name. My specialties, I don't really have any specialty, but I would say instrumental metal, progressive rock, progressive metal, and just anything that really catches my fancy.
Amazing. So, and you all know me. This is my channel. So if you don't know me, I don't know what you're doing here. Maybe you saw somebody else on here that you usually follow and you're like, "Ooh, I'll check this out." But yeah, I love how our little group has our little like flavors that we go to. So I think we'll get a really nice, well-rounded picks of we'll start with our favorite records from the last 3 months. So anything that came out from July, August, and September. Then we'll go into those disappointments, those that we thought were either going to be better or those that we had high hopes for and then just kind of left us cold. And then finally, the surprises, those that we thought maybe weren't going to be that good, but turned out to be pretty good, or just a band that we forgot about that came out with a pretty good album. So yeah, I think we can dive in. To make this fair, I'm going to randomize who's going to go first, because whoever goes first has the advantage of picking the choice that they have chosen, and then leaves everybody else to choose one of their backups. So I like to randomize it so that it's not the same person every single time. So that's right. So we are going with, it's number 6. So it's dealer's choice, which means it's the last person that touches their nose.
Oh,
I think that's Nathan. Sorry, bud.
Fair enough. Okay.
We need a replay.
Slow motion action replay. Let's go.
Oh boy. So now you know what dealer's
Ian
choice is.
knows. It's Nathan.
Yeah. So Nathan, what was the best, in your opinion, best release from July, August, and September?
Yeah, so I was deciding between two possible choices, and one came out like the very first week of the quarter, one came out the very last week of the quarter. I decided to go with the earlier one because I've just been living with it longer, I think. And that's I Am the Manic Whale, bumper book of mystery stories. I have it
Yep.
on CD, and also there's a book that came with it that I got
Ooh.
with it too. So it's a cool concept record, more in that retro symphonic prog style vein, not unlike Spock's Beard or even little touches of Big Big Train and things like that. And it's a cool concept record that talks about these little individual stories that you'd read in like a compilation book of like cool, interesting, scary, weird, creepy stories, I suppose. And to me, it's just one that's really grabbed me, and it gets better as it goes along. I like the second half of the album even more than the first half. The first half kind of leads you in, and then you get into like Nautilus and the closing track, which is this big epic prog piece as well. And it's just a really cool album, and it shows a lot of growth with the band. So that was probably my favorite release of the year. So that's I'm the Manic Whale, bumper book of mystery stories.
Yeah, that I was debating if mine was going to be the bumper book, because man, it was tough. That one was one of my favorites. Nautilus is still one of my favorite tracks of this year. And I'm still waiting for my copy. I ordered it back when it first dropped, and I'm still waiting for my copy with the book, but it was really, really good. If you're looking for that kind of Spock's Beard or Moon Safari type of prog, I think it's one of the best releases this year.
Well, I haven't heard the record myself yet, but I have to appreciate any band that like releases a book to go with their
That is
concept
pretty
album.
solid.
Yeah.
Yeah, it reminds me of Not As Good as the Book from the Tangent, that if you bought the deluxe version, it came with a book. And I actually enjoyed the book more than I enjoyed the album.
And I take it the book is like the stories from the lyrics of the record, but expanded upon. And
Yeah, exactly. Like every song is basically a short story, and so the book is just a short story about each of the different songs on the record. I
Yeah.
think
well,
written by
that's
the
really
different
cool.
band members.
I'm gonna have to check that out.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I
unfortunately, I
gave it a
don't.
spin a while ago, but you know what? The worst thing is, right? I listened to it once on Bandcamp, all the way through, loved it, thought this is really, really cool. I'm going to keep exploring this. Out and about, I'll get out my telephone and listen to it on my streaming service. Oh no, it's not on there. And I was very disappointed.
yeah,
And that's
that
honestly
is
one of the
too
things
bad.
just sort of held me back from listening to it more than I really think I should be doing, because it's one of those records where I know that if I spend some time with it, I will likely consider it to be one of the best releases of the year, just based off the one time that I listened to it all the way through. And it's just like, I need to find the time to actually just get more familiar with it. But I've got so much going on. It's just like,
Yeah,
I haven't heard the band at all. So it's, yeah.
Yeah, I Am the Manic Whale. It's such an interesting band name.
Yeah. I think it's a, what do they call it? Anagram of like the main, Michael
Yes.
Whiteman is the main
Oh.
singer, and it's his name all scrambled up into a different
that's
title.
fun.
So
Yeah, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm pretty sure Michael Whiteman and the rest of the group really helped out Ryo Okamoto with his Myth of the Monstrous album. So if you
Yeah,
really like
that's
that
true.
album, it's
Yeah.
got the same kind of DNA in that.
Okay.
for
I'll
sure.
get this.
Yeah,
That's true.
amazing. So yeah, that
Nice.
was a bumper book of mysteries from I Am the Manic Whale. So let's do the clock. So let's go over, and Ian, you can go next.
Ian? Who the hell's Ian?
Sorry, my Ian, my dyslexic brain hits.
No.
my-
I'm inviting my evil, mysterious cousin Ian. He has a
Oh
mustache.
no,
instead of a
don't
beard.
do it.
Hello there, my name's Ian. I've come to talk about soft pop rock.
Do it.
Oh, wait,
There are
Leave
rules
us alone.
about like your mirror universe counterpart be clean.
Definitely.
Yeah,
Oh,
no
there we go.
beard, but lots
Yeah.
of hair on.
Oh,
it.
no, I've done that look before. It's not good. When I was at university, I had hair down to here and no beard, and it's literally the worst thing I've ever looked like in
Oh,
my life.
man.
Honestly, I look like a chickpea that's been left out in the sun for too long. It's not good. Not anybody needs to see that. This is the
Oh,
look. This
boy.
is where we stand. We are voguing this.
It's good. It's good. It's
Anyway,
good.
Did
let's
you
move
say you are?
from.
Hold on.
Yeah.
You're not bald, right? You just
No,
shaved
no,
it?
no. I shaved my head. I shaved it.
Yeah.
I've got a decent
Yeah.
hairline. Look, you can see it right there.
I do see it. Yeah.
Solid, strong, dependable. You know.
Oh, boy.
Anyway, moving on from my bizarre eccentricities to my favorite pick of the past quarter. I actually really had a hard time deciding on this one, and I was sort of like umming and ahhing and oohing and hearing and thereing and trying to think to myself, what is something that nobody else is likely to pick? Because I could have very easily picked one thing, but then I think Notes would have possibly tried to have me thrown in under a bus if I tried to get in there before them with this. So I left that off to the side as I'm playing my bingo round, as I'm pretty sure I've guessed what their favorite is, but we'll find out. But my pick for this, true to my nature and true to my habits, has to go to Obsidian Tide with their record, The Grand Crescendo. And it really just hits so many chords for me. It's a three-piece band. Doesn't sound anything like a three-piece band. They're one of those kind of like Rush in that respect, in that they always sound like there's a hell of a lot more people involved in it than there actually is. And it's really scratching that old school, late 90s, early 2000s Opeth vibe for me. Like, to the extreme sense of the manner. Whereas, like, I genuinely believe that if Opeth hadn't made Heritage and Pale Communion, Sorceress, etc., blah, 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 and they'd gone more down continuing the path they were setting out with the likes of Watershed and Ghost Reveries and all those sort of like mid to late 2000s records that they brought out, then I firmly believe that the Grand Crescendo would have been a perfect example of where they would have been going with this. It is that brilliant, beautiful sort of harmonization between the light and the shade, those incredible, beautifully sung, clean vocals, which are then segueing into these dark, nasty, really evil sounding sections where it just punishes you. It's just so brutal. And then just like, you think you're drowning in it, you know, you think, oh my God, this is just relentless. And you're just getting, you know, pummeled by this music. But then they just stop and then they pull back the curtains and there's a beautiful sunlit meadow in front of you as everything's happy, shiny and beautiful and wonderful. And it's so well structured. It's so proggy in its structuring as well. It's like basically 6 main tracks. You know, you've got like this little addendum at the end, which is basically just like an addition to the main sort of epic at the end. And it just works so well. There's like not a moment of filler. There's not a moment wasted on this album. And it's just so much fun. I cannot stop listening to it. Even after I've finished reviewing it, I'm just like, I need to move on to the next record. I'm like, but I could just listen to this one more time. You just one more time. And I just can't get away from it. It's like a 62-minute long record as well. And normally when you're getting these records which like breach the hour in length, I tend to sort of think to myself, okay, I can't spend as much time with this as I really want to because there's more things I need to get on with. Where if you've got like a 40-minute record, it's easier to just like get a whole bunch of spins in, really appreciate, put it on casually in the background, whatever. The second this comes on, the second the first like note of Clandestine Calamities comes on, I'm just like, now that's it. I am here for the full hour. Everything else can go away. I'm rocking out, you know, and I'm like, neck muscles hurt after a while from banging out too much to this thing. And I just love it so much. It's not just one of my favorites of the quarter. It's one of my favorites of the year so far. I sincerely doubt this will not be in my top 5, maybe even top 3 of the year. I am vibing it so hard and I cannot get enough of it. That is Obsidian Tides, The Grand Crescendo.
Yeah, I gave it a spin this morning, and if you had told me this was an album that Opeth had put out while working on like Watershed or Ghost Reveries, I would have been like, yeah, that's what this album is. You know, they wear their influences on their sleeves to their advantage. It kind of reminds me how like No Spoon was Dream Theater and Haken. These guys are to Opeth from the late 90s, early 2000s. I've only had one listen under my belt, but I was grooving very heavily to it. So
what I really like about it, right, is like we think about bands. I've seen quite a lot of bands this year who have worn their influences on their sleeve, who've made it really obvious where they're coming from. And All Crust comes to mind, obviously, immediately in that respect. And like, it's kind of Opeth, it's kind of Porcupine Tree, it's a bit of both, but it does feel like they're directly lifting some stuff from them. What I really like about this record is that it feels like it's taking the influences that they have, but it is expanding on those ideas rather than plagiarizing them. You know, it feels like they've got the template, but they are using different tools to make the same music, and it's brilliant for it. And I just 100% love it. Cannot get enough.
They copied the homework, but they changed enough to make it original, right? Instead of
That's
being
That's
like, oh, I'll just hand it in as if it's mine. The only thing I'll change is my name, right?
Yeah. I just love it so much. I can't get enough of this record.
Yeah, and as the resident, like not usually into the heavier side of music, I gave this a listen because of the glowing review and comments, and I actually was enjoying it too. It had just the right balance of like, there's definitely the heavier, harsher vocal moments, but it's blended well with some of the cleaner vocals and styles. I like those Opeth records from like the early 2000s, so it was really connecting with me too. So strong, solid pick.
Oh, wow. So you know it's good when a metal record gets Nathan's seal of approval, you know?
Passes the melodic test, and then I know
that's my metric for it. If Nathan likes the metal record, then it's got to have some mass appeal going on, you know.
It's gotta have some mass appeal.
Is it similar, like the lights? Are they similar to Opeth's lights? Let's say on Ghost Reveries or something like that. Or is it kind of a different style?
It's a slightly more nasal, clean vocal going on. It's a really nice, clean vocal, but it's not quite as like enjoyable as someone like Ackerfeld's cleans. I mean, it is two different guys doing the vocals as well. You know, the harsh vocals and the clean vocals are both by different people. But it took me half a second or two to sort of like gel with the cleans. But after like about the first couple of tracks, I was like, okay, no, I'm into it. Especially the way it sort of dances with the music alongside it. It works really well with the instrumentation. And I do feel that both the growls and the cleans really enhance each other. You know, feels like they complement and play off of each other incredibly well.
Yeah. Amazing. Great. Well, I know I'm going to have more dives into that. So yeah, let's go
I'm
on
writing
to
that one down for my homework.
Yes, you are, Travis. Yes, you are.
I think you'll really enjoy it.
Yeah,
most likely.
I think Travis will like it.
And speaking of Travis, which was your favorite album of the last 3 months?
Ooh, okay. Ooh, I gotta pick one now. This is tough. I've got 4 of them that I could be going through right now, and should I go for the one that I know other people are going to pick, just so I can preemptively get that one off my chest now?
Oh,
I think I will. I'm actually going to go for Steven Wilson's The Harmony Codex.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, I've been saying in our chat how I've been trying to come up with a review for this for the last week and a half or so, and just struggling because I'm having a hard time finding the words to say about it. But it's not for a bad reason. I'm just like lost for words at how gorgeous this record is. There are things I can say about it, of course. Like, to me, this album feels like he took the Future Bites and To the Bone, threw them in a blender, and that somehow those two ingredients created something better than the sum of its parts. It feels like this is the album where it really seems that Steven learned from those last 2 albums, where he was really trying to attempt to do this sort of art pop aesthetic, that whole like Kate Bush talk kind of 80s synth pop meets prog thing. And it's finally honed to a point where it's perfect as it is now. Whereas the last 2 albums, it was him kind of dipping his toes into it. And that's why I'm kind of going with the idea that the Harmony Codex is really like the summation of Steven Wilson's transition from a pure prog rock artist to now just more an art rock artist. And yeah, there's a lot of things I really love on this record. The darker sort of second half of the record is what really roped me in. Like, I wasn't too sure about it on first listen from the first half of the record, but once we get into those last 4 or so tracks, like one of my favorite tracks on the record is Actual Brutal Facts, which is like, it's not harmonically the most interesting thing. The vocals are almost kind of a rap kind of thing, but there's just such a vibe, a mood to that track that I can't stop listening to it. And I mean, the other 3 albums that I have on my favorites list, they're all really great, and I love all 3 of those albums as well, but I just haven't been going back to them. Like, I'm not normally one to really sort of listen to an album over and over again unless it's really something special to me. And the Harmony Codex is the one album from this quarter that I just can't put down. Even if I'm in the mood for, like, this past week, I've been listening to like 80s metal, like Watchtower, and also like death metal, like Classic Death, Control Denied, Pestilence, Atheist, stuff like that. But the Harmony Codex is still fitting into that, even though I'm in a completely different mood. So that's how I know, like, this is the album of the quarter that's spoken to me the most, because it's fitting in with all of those little sort of niches I'm putting myself into in my weekly listening habits.
Amazing. Yeah, so Harmony Codex by Steven Wilson. I've got my review coming up. Well, it's interesting. It's going to be in the future for when we're recording, but in the past in when this video goes out, because this will probably go out Tuesday or Wednesday, and my review is going up on Monday. Yeah,
so you'll still be ahead of me on the review then.
Probably. This is one of the more enjoyable records from Steven in the past while for me. It reminds me a lot of Grace for Drowning. Like, that was my overall flavor. Because once I get to the end with Staircases, I immediately go and start Grace for Drowning. But I also feel like there are 2 very different albums that have been smashed together in this album. One that's very electronical, very like Depeche Mode, very 80s new wave, and one that's more singer-songwriter, more poppy, very like to the bone and whatnot. And in my mind, if they had split the 2 and developed those 2 into both like 45-50-minute albums, rather than one album that's about an hour and 5-6 minutes, I probably would have enjoyed it a little bit more. But I mean,
interesting, because I actually find that he mixed those 2 elements quite well on this record. I find that the singer-songwriter and electronic elements were really well meshed.
Mm-hmm. No, and I totally get that. For me, it's more of like a little bit more of a bumpy listen. That's all. But like the title track of the Harmony Codex, I will just blast that over and over and over again. And I wished he would have done like an extended version of that where it's like 20 minutes. That's all I want. I want like a 20-minute version of that song, because I love it so much.
It's funny because you just touched on my one big criticism of the record, which I'll probably go into more in depth in my review, but I felt like the title track was maybe a little too long, or maybe placed correctly in the track list. Like Steven talks about like making an album in the same kind of vein as like making a film, and the title track kind of feels like an end credit scene, but it's in the middle of the movie.
Okay. In my mind, it was very similar to how he put like Arriving Somewhere But Not Here and Anesthesize in the middle of the Porcupine Tree albums, where it's like this big centerpiece that everything else is kind of built around. But that's just
I'd feel more that way if the Harmony Codex wasn't built around a single chord progression that just goes for 10 minutes. But yeah, I see what you're getting at. Also, just to go back to something you said, like it's the best album Steven's done in a while. I'm also including Porcupine Tree in that, because I wasn't really too into Closer Continuation. Like, I would put this above Closer Continuation personally.
I would agree to that. Okay.
I think the Harmony Codex makes that next track like really hit. Time Is Running Out. It's probably might be my favorite track.
Yeah, I mean, it does kind of split the album into 2 halves, kind of effectively. Like, you could see I don't know where it actually, the split of like side A, side B is on the vinyl
to
or
check.
cassette release, but I could kind of see it being like side B starting with the Harmony Codex.
Yeah, yeah.
Please, side
Also,
C.
there's
Let's be
this
real.
conversation of
Yeah.
what you're saying, balancing the sort of 80s aesthetic with everything else.
Mhm.
I personally feel like the sound play overwhelms the songwriting a little bit. I often
Yeah, I
talk about
remember
that
you
kind of
saying that
continuum.
earlier.
Yeah, and I was talking to Brent actually last night because we did a Steven Wilson ranking of all the solo albums. But
That's gonna be fun.
that's I feel like he's very obsessed with playing in the sandbox of what he can do with sound and making it, this luscious, innovative experience for the ears, sometimes at the expense of the heart of the songs, which I still think there's plenty of great songs at the core of this album, but it just leans a little far in that direction for me, where it's like, oh, you're getting tricky here, and I'm losing
I think I
the thread.
definitely agree with you on that, Matt. In some ways, though, you have to argue to yourself, is this not just a new form of songwriting that Stephen Wilson is almost pioneering in that sort of fashion? Because involving these kind of audio technologies that they simply didn't have like back in the 70s or the 80s or whatever, and now giving us access to this sort of spatial audio level of things and these like 7,000 different channels of surround sound mixing and all that kind of thing to create these kind of experiences that simply couldn't exist 30 or 40 years ago. And it's wild to me that we are getting an album like this, which is so defiant of generalized classification. I mean, I wouldn't call this rock, pop, electronica, soundtrack. I wouldn't call it any of these. It's not even a case of, for me, it's not even it's all of the above. I find that what the Harmony Codex is achieving is I don't want to get too pretentious about this and feed Stephen Wilson's ego that much, because I'm certain he's watching this and is thinking, oh, what are they going to say about my lovely record? But come on, I'm sure you're watching, Stevie. It's fine.
His head is slowly getting larger and larger.
I know, right? We're just like, oh, massage my ego, please. Yes, I love it. No, I mean, I just feel like what he tried to achieve here goes beyond what we've come to expect from him as an artist and as a musician, and really is sort of reaching into these sort of previously untapped territories. And I absolutely agree with you that the songwriting in a traditional sense certainly does suffer a little bit in terms of how he's wanting to make the record sound, as it were, which I think is a perfectly fair criticism and one I completely agree with. But for me personally, I think that how adventurous this record is and how like fearless in what he's trying to accomplish with it is, it's for me, it's unlike anything else I've ever heard in my life. I mean, I've listened to probably thousands of albums in my life, and I can't really put a finger on anything which is that similar to the Harmony Codex. Certain tracks, yes, you can compare them to things like, obviously, What Life Brings kind of sounds like a Blackfield track, so he's kind of emulating himself a bit there. Impossible Tightropes got that kind of like I don't know, a bit of a King Crimson energy, like stuff off of Red or whatever, but as an overall experience, as an overall like movement and an example of his work as a musician, I don't think you can really compare it to much else.
Yeah, I think the innovative aspect is he's sort of second to none in this world at that. And he's explicitly said too that the way that the Beatles wrote songs or Bob Dylan wrote songs is a tradition in pop music from the 1960s onward that he is rejecting in some sense in his sort of 80s and 90s experimental childhood and roots. He loved a lot of music from that time that was like bucking against that trend, where it was more about texture, and just that above the traditional A-B song structure sort of thing. It's really a subjective preference for me. It's like I just love him when he's doing that. And I also I'm not saying that like I am upset with him for going in this direction, because I agree with Nathan too, that I like, once I love an artist, I appreciate all the left turns and all the different things they try and do. It's just like not my favorite Steven Wilson, but I'm okay, you know, run
Yeah.
free, Steven. Do what you want to do.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
would have loved to hear this in one of those theaters that he rented
Oh,
out with like the
same.
17.1.5 surround
Oh,
sound, because
yeah.
much like how like a Christopher Nolan film has to be seen in IMAX, I feel like this album needs to be listened to in that kind of a surround sound, because listening to it on like my little earbuds, it's like watching Oppenheimer on like an old iPod with like the little screen, being like, this is how Christopher Nolan intended me to watch this film. You know, on like my little Shrek built-in DVD TV player. You know?
Oh God,
I
still
even
have
feel
one of
that way
those
with like my
iPods.
big cans too. It's
Yeah.
like,
Yeah,
these aren't good enough for you, Steven.
Yeah. Yeah. Even like my like, you know, $700 Soundheimer earphones. I'm
yeah.
like,
Yeah, yeah.
it's really pushing the technology here, and I need something better. So yeah.
Yeah.
Oh boy.
I
You
love this
hear
album
the
too.
album
Yeah.
stems on whatever studio console he recorded it on. That's the only way to listen to it.
Yeah. Go for it, Nathan.
Yeah, I love this album too. This was like the other choice of my favorite that I was debating with, and I talked quite a bit about it on my channel. In fact, I have possibly a rant that I might come out with based around this
Ooh.
album and the response to
Spicy.
it. So
I
I'm
love it.
considering putting that out. But yeah, I love the sound design. It was just a mesmerizing listen, and it kind of opened my ears to something new in my mind. Like, I'm usually very traditional progressive rock, and I feel like he's able to expand my mind a little bit to explore other sounds that are out there. And so I really appreciate the record for opening my mind a little bit to some new things. So
Yeah, amazing.
Please make the thumbnail just like your normal content smiley face.
yeah.
Things I am
Just
very
like the
annoyed
fires
about.
of hell, like around
Yeah.
you.
And you know, my version of a rant is probably still very quiet and pleasant too.
Right, yeah.
Not like
It'll
me
just-
yelling.
Nice.
Yeah, it'll be us like holding back the crowds, being like, no, let him cook, Ken, just go.
Definitely.
Oh boy. Great. So I guess it'll be my turn since I'm the next in the roundabout. I've got three, one of which was the bumper books, so I'm glad that that one's already been covered. I gotta do the one that I think we all know, my favorite so far. It's the only album this year that has received a masterpiece in my ranking. It's the one that I've listened to probably the most. And it is it is Jiminy from Bear Ghost. So I am always indebted to this group for introducing it to me. Thank you, Nathan. Thank you, Ian, for all the praise of this album, because yeah, the moment that I listened to the first couple of tracks, I knew that this was going to be an album that was very special to me, because this is the exact style of music that I love so much. It was like all of my favorite moments from the quirky styles of Between the Buried and Me or Haken or all those, but without the amount of buildup or death metal that surrounds it. It's like, oops, all quirky. And I like the song Siren, I have listened to more than any other song this year. So it's, even though it was written back in 2020, I still feel like it's very prominent now. And I love the underlying messaging behind a lot of these tracks. I love the metaphors that these boys are playing with. And again, much like the Grand Crescendo, I can't believe that it's only three guys that are playing all these songs and all these music, you know? So yeah, Jiminy gets my highest praise. It's quirky, it's energetic, it's unlike almost anything that I've ever heard. Like the closest I can come to is like a less jazzy version of a Thank You Scientist, or it's just, you know, it's playing with that kind of fun, again, like a Deer Hunter, but a little bit more crazy. And I don't want to say less harmonic, because that's not quite what I'm getting at, but like a less focus in on harmonies and whatnot, and more of just having that fun aspect of it. So yeah, Jiminy by Bear Ghost has been very heavily on my rotation. And honestly, I'd be shocked at this point if it's not my number one album of the year. So
Yeah, this would have been at the top of my list too, but I knew you'd mention it, so I'm like,
I left it for
let
notes.
him take it.
Oh
So,
boy.
yeah.
I thank you for that. I thank you for that.
Yeah,
I can't agree more. Like, ridiculously how good this record is. Like, I don't know. It's like he's scratching an itch for me, right? Like, I mean, in 2022, last year, obviously, Will Wood's record was my favorite of the year. The one that he put out there, In Case I Make It, which was obviously a lot more the introspective version. But then he obviously in 2020 he released the normal album. And if you'd basically if anybody wanted to introduce this record to me, like to get me to instantly click, all they just need to say is it's the normal album but metal. And I would have been like, ooh, 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 mine. I want it. You know? Just there is so much to love about this. Like slightly embarrassingly, I was making dinner the other night, and I might have been listening to this record whilst cooking. And I tell you, that results in a very embarrassing situation of little old me bouncing around the kitchen to Big Town Blanky Blaine's Rockabilly Barbecue, singing into my spatula, because apparently that's what I end up accidentally doing when I get excited, and then having people walking in on me whilst doing it, and I'm just like, I'm committed, I might as well just carry on. And I just carried on going, just like whatever, with people sort of like tiptoeing around me thinking that I've gone insane or there's something, in the water. But I can't help it. It's just a ridiculously fun record. I can't recommend it enough that people, if they haven't listened to it, just give it a go. Stick on like the first couple of tracks, get a vibe check for it, or just stick on Peas and Love, which is just the most fun ever. I love it. Or just go with the Mario cliche, which again is an incredible record. And when he just starts spitting rhymes, like, how cool is that? It's just like, what is going on? This guy is the most incredible singer I've ever heard in my life. It's just insane. I love this record.
Yeah, their mastery of songwriting ship is top notch. Like each track, I'm like, how are they going to top the last track? And then they are able to do it with whatever track comes next.
Yeah,
it's ridiculous.
Yeah, I have one listen to Jiminy and their previous record, which I already forget the title of. Sadly, Blasterpieces. Yes, I have one listen to each of those albums under my belt now, and I wasn't immediately in love with Bear Ghost. I think it's just because like I'm not really the biggest Deer Hunter fan, and they kind of reminded me a bit too much of them. At first, it kind of sounded like, okay, this is just another Deer Hunter ripoff. But I think the more I listened to it, the more it started to kind of gel. And yeah, I really enjoyed Jiminy as well. I think I enjoyed Jiminy more than Blasterpieces. Maybe just because by the time I finally got to listening to Jiminy, it was starting to click with me a bit more. But also, if I had to sort of describe the album, because we were talking about like how it doesn't really sound like, or like we were saying, like it sounds like Between the Buried and Me or something. I kind of thought of it being like a Gen Z version of Queen's a Night at the Opera, sort of in a way, like those short, quirky kind of.
Interesting.
Yeah, like if you did an album like A Night at the Opera, but instead of Prophet Song and Bohemian Rhapsody, oops, All Seaside Rendezvous. So yeah, something like that, and that's kind of what drove me to continue listening to the record, and that's when it started to click. It's like, okay, this is just a fun, quirky record, and I'm gonna have to give it more listens because. It's great. I don't think it'll be my album of the year by any stretch, but I definitely enjoyed what I heard.
Amazing.
I'm like 1 for 4 on this. So I have listened to this album at the grocery store, and for the very practical mindset that I was in, buying oranges and lemons, I maybe wasn't in the right mood.
Yeah, that's not quite the vibe, I would say.
Get some margaritas in, put this on, have a blast, have some fun. It's a big, quirky, funny. Like dancing down the street kind of record for me. I love it.
Yeah. Oh, that's funny.
It's all Nathan's fault anyway. He's the one who got us switched on to this. It's all his fault,
Oh boy.
Nathan is dedicated with these turning us on to stuff.
Nathan's extremely good at it.
Yeah, I love your spreadsheet. That has helped me out endlessly on all these.
Awesome.
I've basically got like a metric, right? If Nathan basically points me towards something, the chances are I'm going to vibe it pretty hard because he's got like such a handle on the sort of stuff that I like. I'm like, yes, that's it. I'm stopping
That's the
everything. We're
one.
going with this. And you've been like, I don't know, like 5 for 5, I think, so far already.
Mhm.
I'm like scrolling up in our Twitter chat to try to find Nathan's. I just like look for his face.
They're
I'm
all
like
very
scrolling
good.
through days of conversation. I'm like, oh, there we go. Okay, there's the
Very good.
album from Nathan. Cool.
That's great. All right, let's round off the best list. Matt, what do you got for us?
So I kind of panicked going into this. I pulled up my surprise album, and it was released in March.
Oh,
So
no.
that's fun.
Oh no!
Oh no!
Oops.
I talked about it in August like it was new, and it was definitely not new.
Oh no!
So I can't cheat here. So I got to move my favorite to the surprise,
That's
and
fair.
I'm gonna have to talk about Tesseract as my
Yeah.
favorite album of
Yeah,
the
yeah,
quarter.
yeah.
This is one that I critiqued in a review in several ways and gave it a middling score of like 7 or 8 or something. And then since then, I've been eating my words because I just have been getting it more and more. And I feel like what Tesseract did is they sort of realized like the greatest version of themselves. Like this is what they set out to do, is strike this balance that they have on this album. Daniel Tompkins just entering like beast mode in every way, on both ends, extremes of his voice, and the soft and the harsh. And it seems like because it's been a while since their last album, this was a true production. Like a lot went into this album. It was well thought out. It was a commitment. It was dedicated time. And it's almost like they locked themselves in their room for 5 years or whatever, and just like, we're going to do Tesseract, what we set out to do, oblivious of like what other trends are going on. And yeah, they've always been one of my favorite prog metal bands. And I loved the album's Altered States and Polaris the most. I think the clean vocals go a long way for me there. At first, this was sort of not, it was failing to meet the mark of those albums. And then, like I said, I just continued and kind of figured out all the little details that I didn't understand before. There's so much going on with the guitar interplay. Songs like The Gray, Legion, the title track, that at the start you sort of get this like, oh, this is a gent section, and you kind of just like tune out and you're like, okay, well, they're just doing a riff. And then like listening to it more, I sort of figured out the movements of the riffs, and like understood it as great albums, as you do with great albums. And it just takes time. So yeah, and songs still like Sirens or Burden are some of my favorites later in the album. I'm just sort of giddy about those, and anytime they come on, I'm hooked. So yeah, Tesseract slides in here at the last moment as my favorite.
No, it was a great one. Like this one may have bumped Polaris off of my favorite Tesseract album list. I feel like this is the perfect progression of gent music, because for a while there I felt like all the new gent stuff just felt derivative. It just felt copies of themselves at that point. Like it was a copy of a copy of a copy, and this was one of the first ones that felt fresh and new. Like what was the other one that came out? Like Periphery's album that came out earlier this year was fine, but it's like it's another Periphery album. This was the first one that I really felt was like, oh, this is the next chapter. This is where this music is going to go. And the title track and Burden alone made this album like just one of my favorites in terms of the metal genre this year.
Absolutely agreed. For me, this is Gent 2.0. This is like the next evolutionary step in what I mean. Gent is not a genre, as Periphery insists to us so much. But as far as I'm concerned, that album has been completely smoked out of the water by War of Being. It's not even close. I liked Gent is not a genre. It was good,
Yep.
you know,
Yep.
but ultimately, like you say, it was a Periphery album. Not pushing any boundaries. It's not really doing anything different to what we've come to expect from them. Now, I've been on board with Tesseract since one, you know. I mean, I've followed them since the very early days. I've seen them live like twice. Unfortunately, the first time I saw them, they were covered in so much smoke machine. I might as well have not seen them live. I could hear them. I couldn't see them. They were somewhere on stage eventually. It was like Gorillas in the Bloody Mist, you know. It was ridiculous. But they've always been such genuine, lovely, warm, and kind-hearted people. I mean, I only ever saw them when it was Ash on the vocals, so I never got a chance to see Dan live, which was a real shame. But Ash was just such a sweetheart, and just one, and that following it up with Altered State when they had that vocal switch. I thought, this is it. This is going to be like the Tesseract sound forever, and I love it. And then Ash sort of left, and Dan came back, and I was really disappointed. I was like, no, my baby. But then I really started warming back up to Dan. And now, obviously, with this latest release, I'm starting to think to myself, he's evolved to his final form. This is the purest and most concentrated form of Tesseract as a band, not only from an instrumental point of view, which has always been good, of course, but from a vocal and melodic point of view. They've never sounded this incredible before. Like, you put on, I think, is it Legion, where he basically just whips out every vocal trick in the book to the point where you just think, is this person even human? And my mind is blown. My mind is absolutely blown by this track. I'm like, and then he just carries on going. This is like the next track, he's just pulling out every trick under the book. It's like, how are you doing this? This is just unfair. Some people don't.
I think
all the talent
in Prog, it's common for like the guitarist to be the disciplined. I spend every day, practicing. It seems like the vocalist is more so like it's like a natural talent, or they're just like kind of the personality of the group or something. But to have someone like him who's like, he is trained and he is as strong as you could be as a vocalist because he's worked so hard at it.
It is a delight of an album. It's really, really good. It was on my short list, I'm not gonna lie. So I'm glad somebody's talked about it.
Yeah. Amazing. Do we want to quickly just rapid fire any of the other ones that we had in the wings? We can start with Nathan and just do a quick round the circuit, just quickly, like these were the ones that I didn't talk about.
Yeah, so I really liked Southern Empire's record, Another World. Thought it was really strong. Maybe not as strong as their previous record, but I still felt it was pretty solid, and another good album from them. I liked the Chronicles of Father Robin album that came out. I kind of like the full, all three together version that came out, but this was just book one that came out more wide release and really good, like classic wobbler type symphonic prog stuff. So that was a solid release as well. And a new Neil Morse album, the Dreamer Joseph Part 1, I thought was good. I was a little worried about it coming off of some albums that weren't as favored from him, but I really liked this one. I thought it was really a good concept record and solid in his style. So those were a couple of my other choices.
Amazing. Ian.
Yeah, I had a few. We've already talked about a few of them already. We've talked about Bear Ghost, we've talked about Tesseract. Couple ones that I'm not sure will get talked about, so I'm going to sort of throw them in here. Hermina's Romancing the Ether. Really loved that one. Absolutely fantastic one. Like the whole sort of like 35-minute long single track album. I loved it so much. I nearly debated having it as my surprise, but I've opted something different. The reason why I loved it so much is because I've always seen Hermina as being kind of like almost like a mid-tier prog band. They've always just sort of been there, kind of like enjoyable, but never really pushed the envelope for me. But Romancing the Ether was just so much fun. It went so many places I wasn't expecting, and I just loved every single second of it. And second of all, again, one that I just really want to slip in there real quick, just because I'm not sure many people will have listened to it because it might be a little bit esoteric, but we'll go there anyway, with Yearning, Promethean Fates Sealed by Flesh Vessel, which is as attractive and sounding name as you can possibly expect from it. And about as...
They're a soft rock band, right?
Oh, yes. Yeah. They're
Yacht rock. They're definitely yacht rock.
Yeah, if you've ever listened to Neil Young, it's basically the same thing with a fancier name, you know. You just Harvest Moon, it's just that all over again, you know. You know? It's the weirdest record I've listened to all year, and to this day, I mean, I love it. I absolutely love it, but my God, I have to be in a particular mood for it. But when I'm in the mood for something which really stretches the boundaries as to what extreme music can be, oh, does it hit those buttons? Oh, does it really satisfy that itch? Not something I would do as an easy recommendation to anyone, I'll be honest with you. But if you're looking for something fearless that really pushes the envelope of what you can expect from that kind of extremity of like really powerful metal, then Flesh Vessel's Yearning, Promethean Fates Sealed is one to check out. Little hype guy here. Whoop, whoop, whoop.
Amazing. Trav, what and if you don't have any, don't worry about it, but which one's what's another best one from this little roundup?
Well, because my list is never completely static, I've moved one of the ones that I've liked into my surprise category. And that means the remaining two out of the favorites, I'm going to second Ian with the Himina Romancing the Ether for pretty much all the same reasons. Like, it's just a great 35-minute track. It has a couple moments, like there's like this Mario level moment.
Don't dish that bitch.
Oh, I love that. That's one of my favorite
I love it, but
it's
definitely a big-lipped alligator moment in the track.
Love it.
The
That's
Indian
the best
technotronic club section is amazing.
Honestly,
I'm not even being ironic.
I was going to say, without any shred of humor or whatnot, best part of the song. Like when it goes into that, I was just like,
I don't hate it.
Amazing.
Yes.
I don't hate it. It's just so out of left field. And the other one that I like, I do have to give it more listens, but Final Pitch by Arch Echo. Really great instrumental metal release, although the track that really got me into it was the single, I think it's the title track, the one with the 10-second songs guy, Anthony Vincent, on vocals.
Oh shoot, yeah.
I didn't know he was on that.
I love Anthony Vincent's videos, and you know, I love his very not serious approach, but to hear him on a more serious song, like, the guy's got the chops to do it, and he proves it with that. So I really enjoyed that record. I do have to give it more listens though, because I've only listened to it like maybe 2 or 3 times so far, but it left an impact on me that put it into that favorites category more than maybe some other records that came out this quarter.
Yeah, I forgot that they had released one, because I saw them open up for, was it Haken? I think when Haken was I'm trying to remember if it was Haken or not. I want to say it was Haken, but I could be very wrong. I feel like I definitely saw Arch Echo. Yeah, I definitely saw them
open for Dream Theater recently.
Oh, they're getting around. Yeah, they're getting around. Yeah, so really quickly, most of mine were already talked about. Bumper Books was already talked about. The Endless Blue from Deadly Carnage was one that really surprised me in terms of, and I gotta thank this team for that. One that's already, you know who you are. It was so good. And one, again, if you're into more of like just straightforward metal, Tomb Mold put out a pretty amazing album called The Enduring Spirit. Again, if you just want straight up metal, it's pretty intense. It's pretty intense.
It's really good though.
Yeah, it's really
good.
So yeah, those were the ones that I wanted to quickly mention. And then bringing us home, we've got Matt over on the side.
I do want to figure out that Arch Echo record. It's like, it's too intimidating to me. I can't wrap my head around it, but I'll get there. Okay, so I wrote a few down. I've been listening a lot to the Grails album. They haven't put out an album in a while. It's hard to even call it prog, but it definitely has a prog spirit to it. It's more like a film soundtrack kind of vibe to it. It's got a little bit of like disco era cheekiness and little like guitar bits, some strings, like that corny disco string sound, but also like a very dark, jazzy, atmospheric ambience as well. So if you like instrumental music and like film soundtrack type music, it's pretty cool. But it's not like devoid of melody. There's still quite a bit of that in there. Then also I wrote down Moonlight Sky. I think it's Cone Fusion or Cone Fusion or something like that. It's jazz fusion, pretty straightforward. There's an album by a band called Plank called
Oh, I have listened to that.
Yeah, really cool. It's like it's got some prog metal in there, but it's also like post rock. It's instrumental. Got a little bit of like clean guitar, mathy, whittliness going on. Some like kind of driving rhythms, like a krautrock, like can type of sound too. Really cool. I'm into that one. Also Mutoid Man with Mutants. Super fun one from earlier, I think July. Kind of Mastodon-esque is probably the best comparison. That terrible stoner rock label would probably be thrown on this thing. Kind of just a sludgy, like good time. They know who they are, they know what they're doing, they're leaning into it, and it's fun. And then the last one is kind of similar, not similar at all musically, but like it's fun. Matteo Mancuso, he's a guitarist, and I'm not really into this whole scene of like Instagram guitar dudes who are just like showing off, but this guy he plays just with his fingers, so no pick. And I've like never heard anything like that without a pick. He's really just shredding, and the whole album is, I mean, it's his name, it's really all about him and his showcase. And like I said, I'm not really into that typically, where it's like all about the musician chops, you know, but
Like the
this one for
Nito kind of.
what was that?
Yeah, Ichika Nito crowd, I guess. Like, he's another one of those YouTube Insta guitarists. So I like his work too. But yeah, go on.
Yeah, and this is more like on the jazz end. There's definitely some metal touches, but it's like jazz fusion for the most part. He plays acoustic and electric, and yeah, it like the cover is the corniest nonsense ever. Like it's like, I think it's called The Journey, and it's just like a guitar like with some like wavy lines, like it's like shooting through the sky, and then you got this like pastoral, you know, vista of so that tells you kind of all you need to know. But when I'm in the mood to just like geek out over someone's playing, that's the album.
Amazing.
Right now.
Oh, great. So I've got a couple albums from everybody here to check out. Let's pivot to some people's favorite, other people's most harsh and hardest to try to figure out, the disappointments. Let's see who's going to go first in this one. We got a 2, which is me. Okay, I'll set the tone then for this one. Now, you know, as we have to preface, it's like these albums aren't necessarily the worst or the bad. It's just these are the albums that I was hoping more for, and it didn't deliver. And I hemmed and hawed as I have a couple of them. But I think the one that disappointed me the most because of how excited I was for it was ultimately Stone from Baroness.
Ooh.
I know. It's spicy. It's just so in terms of Baroness's past works, it's the best sounding the band has ever been. But unlike any of their past works, I can't tell you a single note from this album, even though I've given it multiple listens. You know, like ask me about anything from Purple or Green and Yellow or even Gold and Gray, which up until this past release was my least favorite album from them. I could still tell you a couple of tracks off of that album, and I just felt like there was a lot of sizzle without any real perch on this album. Like there wasn't that moment of meat that I was really hoping for. It's kind of like getting a steak that looks great and then you cut into it and it's nothing but grizzle. And you're like, well, yes, this is very well presented. It's very well produced. It looks amazing, but there's nothing really for me to come back to, which is a shame because, as I mentioned, this is them at their most competent behind the mixing board. Like I can hear all the instruments. The guitars have that really gnarly and gross sound that I love, but I can actually hear them very distinctly between all the vocal works that have that same kind of growly, very sludgy sounds that I can hear to the bass work and the drums work. So it's mixed and mastered masterfully. I just wish that there was more music on there that I enjoyed. So that for me was the most disappointing album of the quarter for me. So
Yeah, I kind of get you on that one. Like I haven't even given the album a full listen yet, just because I guess I put it on when I wasn't in the right like mood, or I guess it wasn't the right time to listen to it because I had to go on to something else. But yeah, I kind of came away with the same experience from what I have listened to from it, is just nothing really sunk its teeth into me. Like you can go back to pretty much every past Baroness record and there's something catchy. There's something that really like grabs your attention and won't let go. Like, but this one I just didn't find that off the bat, like initially. Like it just didn't immediately do it. It might be one of those records that like you have to listen to it a lot before it starts to really sink in.
mhm.
And yeah, I mean, I also agree that yeah, the production is a little better. I like that the snare drum and kick don't sound like whoopee cushions. That's great. I can appreciate that. So
Yeah.
that is a mark in their favor. But yeah, when I go back to give this one a listen, like it's still kind of on my to-do list.
Mhm.
Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, I think
But I can see where you're coming from, just from my own initial experience with the record so far.
yeah, and ultimately for me, with the first single that they dropped, I got really hyped and really excited for it because I really
It was a good
enjoyed.
single.
I liked that single, but then when the album proper came out, I'm like, oh, there's really nothing else here, unfortunately. Or
I was so
so
surprised that everyone was thinking this sounded like so much better. I think it
Yeah.
does in some ways, but it's one of those albums that I feel like I have to keep turning it up to,
right.
like, and I like what's going on, and so I basically have to just blast out my
Yeah,
eardrum.
maybe because all the other albums sounded like they were being mixed through mud, and now that we're getting mixed through water, it's like, oh, I can actually
Automatically gonna
see the
sound
colors.
better.
I can see the colors. It's not completely clear, but I know that there's colors in here now.
If you want some whiplash, right,
I do.
go from the harmony codex to Stone. I'm not saying that I want to beat Stone up or nothing like that, but it's kind of like, son, I see what you're doing. You made it better, but this is how a real man makes a record. I'm just saying, you know.
Oh, that's funny.
I kind of liked Stone. It was okay. I've listened to it like twice, but I don't know. I mean, Baroness have always been a bit of a hit and miss band for me, anyway, in the first instance, to be honest with you, because I'm always kind of like sat there thinking, I'm listening to this, but I could be listening to Mastodon instead, and I'm kind of like, you know,
Yeah.
always like them, and like they're never something that I'm going to actively turn away from listening to if it's on or anything like that. But I don't know. I mean, it's a fine record, Stone. It's fine. You know, I
Yeah.
would never put it in the good category. I'd put it in the it's there, it's pleasant, but yeah, you know.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, when I love golden or not golden gray, sorry, when I love green and yellow and I love purple, it's like this is the same band. Whoa. Yeah. So yeah, that was Stone from Baroness. Not so great. So yeah, let's go to Matt. Matt, he's over on the side.
Yeah, I think mine is Soen. What is it called? I don't even know what it's called.
You nicked my
Memorial.
choice.
Oh yeah.
I have to go with my backup now. Damn it.
I mean, that was one of my backups, I will admit.
Yeah, so like Kaya, the album like Kaya from, it must have been 6-7 years ago, something like that, is probably one of my favorite progressive metal albums from that decade. So I really had high hopes for the last 3 albums for Soen, and it just seems like they switched gears after that one and have gone after this, what they think is a very accessible sound, but I actually think that some of the hooks and things on past record, like their earliest records, are even better. So it's like it doesn't even meet the mark for like this grand, powerful melodic sound that they're going for. And it just, everything is so predictable. I feel like I just know exactly where they're going at every turn, and it's like, okay, this chord's coming next and they're going to land on this for the chorus, and it just does every time. And I think they're kind of, it makes me upset because it feels like they're wasting whatever spark the band had earlier in their career. I also think their vocalist is one of the best in the genre. So yeah, it just kind of, it wasn't, I think after whatever the last one was called,
Imperial,
Lotus,
I think it was. I think it was Imperial came before this one, and Lotus was just before that one.
Yeah. I wouldn't say it was surprising as a disappointment, but I'm just always hoping that they're gonna like ascend to some.
Yeah. You would think
level.
with all these very, very talented musicians, like we've got some of my favorite musicians in this band, they would put out something a little bit better. Like I love their first album. One of my favorites. But yeah, it's just fine ish.
It almost feels like it's been written by an AI that's been fed every single song of theirs from the past and just asked to produce another Soen album. And I just found it so incredibly by the numbers and tedious that I was just like, you're on board now, and I just turned it off. I was like,
yeah. I'll go back to Tomb Mold. That's what I'll do.
Yeah, that's it.
I mean, maybe a little controversially, I've kind of always felt that way about Soen. Like, if I had to say, like, they're one of the more disappointing prog bands in my books in general, just because, I mean, I do appreciate a band that wears its influences on its sleeve, but I do feel Soen, they always just kind of leave me feeling a little blank after I listen to them. Like, that was the thing that I listened to, and, well, I guess it's on to the next thing. It just never really, they never really hooked me.
No, that's fair.
Yeah, that's fair. I did hear somebody say that they're the prog metal version of Asia, where it's like all of these.
That is perfect. That's exactly what I would say. Yeah.
Oh, excellent.
And I'm like, oh, it wouldn't hurt so bad if it weren't true. Like, oofa doofa. Yeah. Oh boy.
I think there's like such a self-seriousness to their music too. Like they kind of had that cold, like Scandinavian, like this is
music,
and they never break, and you just want them to like smirk a little bit, you know.
They make Opeth sound like Bear Ghost. Like,
love it.
Opeth is at least having fun.
Oh boy. Yeah. All right, Nathan, which one do you have for us?
Okay, so this pains me a little bit to say it because it's one of my favorite bands of all time, really. But I'm gonna go with the Flower Kings latest record, Look at You Now.
That was my second one.
Yeah, which I liked enough, but it just didn't excite me. It was the first time I felt like it was just kind of Flower Kings by numbers, and just nothing really stood out. And I don't really care for like the middle part of the record, just a few songs that just don't really connect with me at all, unfortunately. And they're like one of my favorite prog bands between like Stardust We Are to like Banks of Eden era. I was like really in love with them as like one of the top tier prog bands, but lately they just keep kind of sliding a little bit back for me and my personal taste and connection. The last few records have kind of been leading that way for me, and now they're not quite as much of like, you know, a big prog band that I'm really excited for the release. It's more just, okay, another Flower Kings record. I wish they'd go back to like the big epics and doing something a bit more proggy. I feel like they've been doing this like shorter songs and they're decent enough, but nothing really exciting or surprising. And I just wish they'd go back to like their classic epics and do something a bit more bombastic prog again. But this seems to be kind of the lane they're settling into, which is a little bit disappointing for me.
Yeah, I 100% agree. Like, Waiting for Miracles for me was their worst album. I think this one may have toppled it only because they were getting better and better and better with each one that came out after that, right? Like,
I agree.
Islands I liked better. Waiting for Miracles I liked better. No, wasn't made. What was the one that followed?
By Royal Decree.
By Royal Decree. Thank you. I liked even more than Islands, but this one, it was a major step back in terms of it felt rushed. It felt like if Roy and Stolt just put this out as a solo record, I would have been like, yeah, that feels more in the lane that this one goes in. It's just, I don't know, after about 5, 6, 7 listens, I didn't really get anything out of it. It's just, give me those grand orchestrations, give me those big epics. So yeah, it was my second big disappointment of this quarter.
I'll be honest, I've never
Still got is that the vinyl up there?
It looks like it's the vinyl that's right there.
Yeah, I have the vinyl here. So, and I'm still glad I have it because I'm a collector of the band and I enjoy it. It's still probably in my makes of like top 50 albums of the year or something like that. But just compared to their previous works that I love from their classic era, it just doesn't measure up for me personally.
Throwing all my pro credentials under the bus, I've truthfully never really much cared for many of the things Roy and Stoltz done. Ugh, I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
It's fine.
It's just not very me, if that makes any sense. Like I get it. I understand people who like this, like his stuff. I understand people who love the Flower Kings because I did give them a try. I really did try with the Flower Kings. I remember like listening to, I think it was Unfold the Future like ages ago, and I thought this is pretty bopping. I'm kind of enjoying this. And then what was that one record they got where it was like 8 hours long or something? It was some ridiculous length.
Most of them.
I was going to say, it doesn't really narrow it down, does it? No. Isn't there one that starts with like a 30-minute epic or something like that? I can't remember.
I can picture it. It's the Garden of the Mind.
Yeah, I think that's
Flower Power.
Flower Power, thank you, Nathan.
Yeah, Garden of Dreams is the
I
Garden
tried
of
so
Dreams.
hard and got so far, but in the end, I couldn't really do it. I think, honestly, I think a lot of it was when I tried listening to the Flower Kings. I was in a really, really metal part of my life, and it just wasn't scratching that itch. But I don't know, maybe I need to go back then and give them another try. Just try it round 2 and see what happens, But as a general rule, never been a huge fan. Maybe that will actually help, and maybe I'll actually like this new one. I don't know. I keep telling myself I need to go and listen to it, but then something else comes along and I just want to listen to that instead.
I would honestly skip this one. If you're more into the metal, I would try Desolation Rose. That's their more heavy one.
Sure.
Yeah, it's not necessarily my favorite one. I still love The Sum of No Evil. It's the most orchestration, and it's the most beautiful one in my mind. But
I will have to give them another shot, definitely. Yeah, I feel like I'm missing out, and I don't want to feel like I'm missing out if there's something really genuinely brilliant to be uncovered there. So I'll start with Desolation Rose, and we'll go from there. See what happens.
Amazing. Report back.
I will.
Yeah, I'm kind of in between on the Flower Kings myself, where aside from the Fish Bus record, aside from that one, I kind of treat the Flower Kings on a song by song basis. Like I might listen to a tune here or a tune there, but I never really like got into listening to their albums. So I mean, I've listened to like a couple tracks from their last record and I enjoyed it. I listened to a couple from the one before it, and yeah. But I think I'm in the same boat as Ian here, where it's like, other than Sum of No Evil, which is the only album of theirs that I've like really sat and listened to in full, I probably should go and get a little deeper into their discography. Like I've got the albums that Daniel Gildenlow from Pain of Salvation was involved with, because of course I do. And maybe those are a good starting point for Ian because, like, hey, you know,
Yeah.
if you've got Daniel, you've
Yeah,
got some metal
okay.
cred.
Yeah, I'll look into that, definitely.
Maybe listen to Adam and Eve or something.
I was gonna say
Okay,
Adam and
yeah.
Eve is one of my favorites as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, cool.
Yeah.
I've got some research and some homework to do, I'm sure. Can't wait, actually. I always excited to
Hours
see
and
recent.
hours.
Oh
hours.
yeah, it never
Yeah,
ends.
baby.
Never ends. All right, with that, let's go to Ian. Which one was the big disappointment on your end?
Oh, because Matt so cruelly took my first choice, I've had to resort to scraping the barrel. No, for me, it's not really prog like at all, but it's a band that I've always sort of really enjoyed their output, even if I've never really thought of them as a consistent albums band. And that is Endling by Kvelertak, which came out this year. They got the start in like the early 2010s, I think it was, with their self-titled record. I'm just going to make sure I'm not actually talking at my butt. Yeah, they had their self-titled record, and they had the same artist who did the covers of all the Baroness albums did all the covers for the Kvelertak albums.
Which
So
is so confusing.
I know, honestly, for the longest time I was like, which
You
band am I
mean John
looking at
Baisley
here?
from Baroness, who did the album covers for Baroness?
Must be
They've just
him.
got that really familiar look about them, right?
Yeah.
But and they've been through a few stylistic changes, a few lineup changes over the course of the time. But for me, I've always thought of Kvelertak as being that loud, drunken frat bro uncle at your Viking wedding who's knocking back a couple of glasses of mead, yelling incoherently before stumbling through the wedding cake, and then laughing at everybody as he just sets the house on fire by accident, that sort of thing. It's brash, uncompromising, brutal, but with a sense of fun and joviality about it. I mean, you listen to like tracks like Mjord and stuff like that. It's got this great sort of like fun like thing to it, and it was just really cool. But as they went on, they started getting a bit more take me more seriously. I'm no longer your alcoholic uncle. I'm your newly sober stepfather or something like that. And it was just kind of like, yeah, but where's the fun? You've matured and you've grown up a bit, sure, but you left the fun behind.
Mhm,
And like
mhm.
they started doing these like 5, 6, 7, 8 minute long tracks. I'm like, Kvelertak, what are you doing? This isn't you. This is some weird, like new age version of yourself, and it's just not working because
Mhm.
Endling, I tried to like it. I really did try to like it because I like Kvelertak as a band. As I say, they're more of like a songs band for me than an albums band. But whenever they come on like a heavy metal mix or something like that on Spotify, I'm like, oh yeah, here we go. This is my jam. This is my jam. I'm gonna throw myself around the room and go nuts. It's just like great fun. I always have a good time when they come on. But I found Endling just boring, just incredibly, insufferably boring from start to finish. And I'm like, you were never a boring band. I might not have liked all the creative decisions you've made over the course of your life, but you were always fun, and now you're just boring me. And it's just like, oh my God, shut up. What is going on with this band? It's just like, ugh, no, skip, move on to the next one. Don't like it. Boring. I was going to review it, but I couldn't bring myself to spend that much energy and time on actually saying anything about it. So, which is why I'm doing it now. So consider this to be my official Kvelertak review. I'll come up with a funny thing to call myself, and I'll do the finger snap and point, and the album art will appear in the corner somewhere, and then I'll clip it up like do the thing that I do. I'll go into far too many obtuse metaphors about stuff and overscript everything, and it'll be great. But no, just a deeply disappointing record for me, and just not one I don't think I will ever listen to again. And for me, really, it's kind of damaged Kvelertak in my eyes as a band that I'm gonna even look forward to listening to in the future. I'll be real with you. It's just like, yeah, I was like,
Did you like Split?
Split was okay. Yeah, I kind of like that one. I didn't like go back to it a lot, but I enjoyed it, or at least parts of it.
What you said about the album versus songs thing is totally true. There are a few songs on Split that I was just like, into.
I mean, the first two records, like Mia, obviously, and the self-title that they still have, that was class. I loved that stuff. Really, really enjoyed that band back then. But I don't know. They're just losing me. They're completely losing me at the point. And it is a shame for me. It really is, because they were a band that I enjoyed a lot. But just Endling feels like it's the end of the thing. I'm just like, okay, that's it. I'm done with these guys now.
Oh, that's a shame. Sadly, I haven't heard about these guys, so maybe I'll check some of their earlier works and leave
Check
this
out
one.
their debut.
Okay.
It's so much fun. It is a really good beer drinking rah kind of
Okay.
album. Love it.
I'll check that out.
Yeah, it's fun.
Amazing. Trav, let's go to you. What was the disappointing album from bringing us to the end of this segment?
Ooh, okay. I have to go with Matt's favorite,
Codex.
Tesseract War of Being.
Oh.
I just didn't care for it. It did not meet my expectations. It was very much an in one ear out the other record for me, and I think I understand a lot of what Matt was saying about why he loved it so much, and I mean, I definitely agree that like once you start to get like the swing of the guitar riffs and all that, it's Tesseract is always one of those bands where it kind of opens up the more you listen to it. But I tried listening to this album several times, and it just seemed like no matter how much I tried to get into it, it just didn't do the trick for me. It kind of bored me a little. And I can't remember a single hook off the record. There isn't like a big climactic moment on the record that like took my breath away so much that I want to go back to it. And I also kind of felt like maybe this is like the sort of like other kind of critical part of me coming out. Like it felt like a bit of a retread to go back to harsh vocals for me. Like I really liked when Tesseract said like, we're not going to be like other gent bands. We're not going to do harsh vocals after this debut album. And that they really wanted to focus on the cleans. And, Altered State is by far one of my favorite albums of all time. Maybe that also kind of colored a bit of my opinion because once they had Daniel Tompkins back, and I mean, no disrespect to Daniel, he is like, I mean, even as you said, like on Legion, he's going full beast mode on that track. And I can really appreciate a singer who just has that much skill and discipline to put it their all into a track. But I felt like there wasn't a good song for that exposition of his talent. It's kind of like what a lot of people criticize about like shred guitar. There's a lot of talent behind it, but I'm struggling to really remember any melodies. I'm struggling to remember any hooks. I'm struggling to remember something that catches my attention. But it's a really good show of skill. And I kind of feel like that's what Daniel Tompkins' performances on this album kind of leave me feeling. They leave me feeling a little cold because they're very good. They're very skillful. They're very precise. But I just want to hear like a good, stinky, catchy hook, something that's gonna make me go back and listen to it over and over again, or have something that just gets stuck in my head and I can't get it out until I jam it in my ear holes once more. So yeah. And I mean, Tesseract has been kind of on a downslide for me lately. Like I didn't really get into Sonder too much either. Polaris was okay, but I felt like it was a little too mellow. Yeah, it's just maybe Altered State was just so perfect that I'm going to put everything that comes out after it up against that as a record. And you can't compare something to perfection and be wowed by it. So, like, against a 10 out of 10, an 8 out of 10 is going to sound terrible. Now, I didn't hate the record. Like, I will go back and listen to it, and I'll continue trying. I hope to get to the point where Matt is with it. I hope to get to the point where it starts to click and the album really becomes like a favorite of mine, because I see that so many people are really, really loving this. Like, but I'm going to be the opposite of the rest of you. I'll still put Periphery's new album over this one as the gent release of the year for me.
Fair.
Oh, that's fair. Yeah, I think while we were praising the album, I can just see you like sitting on your hands, being like, "Honor!"
I was quiet on purpose.
No, it's not Haken's Affinity. We both love that album, right?
I love that album.
The hooks are not that style. They're not that immediate. It's like, so I totally get you on that. That's what I was struggling with too. Like I didn't hear, they weren't sticking with me. So yeah, I don't know what it was, but eventually it all connected.
Yeah, and I'm a Tesseract fanboy, so you know, like Nathan, once they've reached that pinnacle, nothing they can do no wrong, right?
Well, that was the point of like what I liked about them from like Altered State on to Sonder. Well, even Sonder kind of brought back the harsh vocals a bit, but they did bring something different to the gent table where they were exclusively clean vocals. And like, I don't know, it's like kind of like the old school Metallica fan in me of like, I have something to sort of point and accuse them of being sellouts on is they've sold out to the gent fans that want harsh vocals again. Well, you know, at least they brought back harsh vocals before Opeth did.
That is true. That is true.
That is why I like these little sessions, because we do have these different opinions, but it's always cool to hear both sides of the same coin. So I think it's really cool that we've had both like a favorite of the quarter and a disappointment of the quarter being the same record. I love that. I think that's really cool.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. That's why I love doing these. So I think we can rapid fire really quickly any other disappointments that we may have had, if you had any. I mean, most of mine were already talked about. Look at You Now and So On. The one that disappointed me only because of how much I was looking forward to it and how much the album following or they released just before it was the new Southern Empire album. Another World was fine, but when you compare it to Civilization, it's apples and oranges. It's like almost two different bands. But yeah, that was my only other one that we hadn't touched upon. Does anybody else have any other ones? We can do a quick rapid fire going around. If not, that's totally fine.
My main disappointment from this quarter is I still haven't finished purchasing my house yet, but solicitors be crazy, but no, apart from that.
Oh boy.
Pomegranate Tiger's all inputs are kind of, it also left me cold too. Like it's good, but I think I really liked the first Pomegranate Tiger record a lot, and that when that came out, I got to see them live opening for Protest the Hero, and they were really nice people, really great instrumental stuff. But I don't know, just this record kind of felt a bit like Animals as Leaders Redux. Like they're just kind of pulling off a lot of the same moves as, and that's kind of a criticism I have of a lot of instrumental prog metal these days, is like everybody's just trying to be Animals as Leaders Part 2, and Pomegranate Tiger is maybe the worst offender in this case. Yeah, maybe the new Neil Morse record, like it was good, but it just didn't grab me either. It just kind of in one ear out the other. Needs more overtures.
There were only two. What's up with that?
I love that.
Yeah, I know I'm in a weird camp for Joseph because I actually prefer Jesus Christ the Exorcist over Joseph, and I know I'm in the minority for that.
I haven't heard the Jesus Christ the Exorcist one, so
I loved it. At the end, it always makes me cry, you know. But this one, I think back to like I prefer Jesus Christ Superstar over Joseph and the Technicolor Dreamcoat, and I'm in the same kind of band with this one. I do hope that part 2 will help recontextualize it and make me enjoy it even more. Yeah. Any other disappointments?
To figure out Neil from Nathan's commitment.
I really hope he continues this trend of doing like these musicals based off of Andrew Lloyd Webber's work. So it's only a matter of time before we get Starlight Express.
Hell yeah, I'm on board for that. I'm on board for that. That'd be great fun. Especially if he starts fusing them together and we get cats on board the Starlight Express.
Right? Yeah. Amazing. All right, let's go into some surprises. I'll roll. This is always my favorite one because these aren't necessarily our favorites, but these are the ones that made us really excited for what's coming next. I already rolled 2, that's me, and I already rolled 6, that was the wild card. Come on, give me something new. We're going to 1 for Matt.
All right, I'm just texting my wife here.
Oh yeah, we're going a little over schedule, so thank
That's
you
fine.
everybody. We are hitting the hour-and-a-half mark, so this one might go down as one of our longest ones. So
Yeah,
But a good quarter.
sure.
Good quarter.
All
yeah,
right,
it's
so
been a good quarter.
so surprises. I have. So it's actually a recent one. And it's a surprise because just the general genre is not something I am typically super into. It's kind of in the neo-prog vein. I've been warming up to bands like Mystery, Enchant, thanks to you, Notes, on that one. And it's kind of in the same vein. It's the band Subsignal. Just came out in the last couple weeks. The album's called A Poetry of Rain, and it is a tasty little thing. They're just it's really consistent. Like there's really not a down moment for me. It reminds me a little bit of the last year the Lonely Robot album. Like, I like it in the same kind of way. It's not super similar in sound, but it just, like, there's nothing super innovative or adventurous about it, but I just appreciate the songwriting a lot. There's quite a bit of tricky playing and uncommon time signatures, but I'd say that kind of soaring melodic vocals take the forefront. And I really am just starting to kind of peel back the layers with this thing because it's somewhat new still, but I really just didn't expect going in. Also, the band was one that always came up on Spotify. I'd be listening to something, and then one of their songs from their last album would come on after it, and it just annoyed me so much. So I was like, I will never like anything by Subsignal.
Oh, that's funny.
Here it is. So
there it is. That's pretty good. I have not heard about this band before, so I'm gonna have to check them out because I always try to pride myself of being like, oh, I know all the bands that you guys are talking about and all the albums, and this one caught me off guard, so I'll have to check this out.
I think they're German.
Okay,
but their last album was called like La Muerte or something like that. I feel like it was in Spanish, so it's like I'm pretty confused here.
Yeah, I've definitely heard of these guys before, but I've never really given them a listen. But neo-prog, I kind of have the same issue, I guess, as you do, where it's not really my cup of tea, but I do try to dip my toes into it every once in a while. So maybe I'll give that one a go.
There's some riffage too, which will help.
Yeah, and I mean,
metalness.
It doesn't have to be the most adventurous or innovative thing in the world. It just, as long as it's good,
I gave it a curiosity spin about 2 weeks ago, I think, and I enjoyed it. I enjoyed it a lot. I haven't got around to exploring it any further. Yeah, it's good. It's definitely good, and I do feel it's definitely something that can grow on me if I was to give it some more listens. But it's just like there's so much stuff out there at the moment, and I've done enough hours in the day, so it's like, trying to find the time, But I need to get around to listening to it again because I did enjoy it.
Yeah, there's so much music
in my wheelhouse.
It's a bit of Nathan,
I think
for
you
sure.
like it a lot, Nathan.
Yeah. And speaking of Nathan, which was one that surprised you this quarter?
Okay, I kind of deciding between 2, but I wanted to highlight Dream the Electric Sleep and their album American Mystic. Yeah,
that was mine. You got it.
Yeah, I really love this record. I knew about the band from before, but this was really the first deep dive really I've taken into their record, and I was super impressed. I just love the sound of it. I love, it's not really full-blown prog. It has little prog tendencies, but it's just really solid rock music with great vocals and great catchy hooks, and it just really grabbed me right off the bat. And it's a good, it's a fairly short-ish record, so it goes by pretty quick, and every track is memorable, and it's just a really excellent listen that I just had a blast with over the course of the last quarter. So one of the strongest albums I heard.
Yeah. Considering their last couple of outputs were fine, but nothing really to write home about. I think the one that they put out two before this one had like one track on it that I really liked, but other than that, it was just, yeah, it's fun, kind of like rocker style of prog. But yeah, this last one really blew me away. I kept spinning it because the whole thing from start to finish is so solid. So
It's a great record,
Sure.
that one. I keep meaning to finish my review on it, but I keep getting distracted by other things. I'm just like, it's sort of like it's in this half-finished state. And
yeah.
plot twist, it's a really good one. I'm going to recommend you buy in physical format. So, there you go.
Yeah, it's
Great record.
oh boy, there's so many. I have a list of like 20 plus albums that I still need to review, and I'm like, I'm just going to put out one of those 20 albums in 40 minutes videos just so I can move on.
Yeah, I think I need to do some of those as well.
I built a
Amazing.
channel on those.
Yeah, absolutely. Great. Ian, what did you got for us? What was your exciting one?
I had a few ones to choose from in this respect, but ultimately, I want to put a spotlight on it. You've mentioned it already in brief passing, but for me, it was absolutely Deadly Carnage's Endless Blue that really took me by surprise. I was not expecting what this record was like at all. Like, you think of a band called Deadly Carnage, you think, rah! Do you know what it makes me think of, right? Like,
Yacht Rock?
What is that?
Yacht Rock?
No. Devin Townsend, when he does Punky Brewster, and he goes, "We are Cryptic Corridor from South Central Poland." And you think it's going to be death metal, and then it turns out they're a whiny little punk band at the end of it all. You think Deadly Carnage is going to be this hideous, brutal black metal with lots of like hideous shrieking and screaming and scary wolves jumping on you to try and kill you as you listen to it. But no, it's one of the most beautiful post-rock albums I've heard in a very long time. It is gorgeous, absolutely gorgeous. The soundscapes, the vocals, the sheer just magnificence of every little tiny detail on it is just, oh my God, I was not expecting it. I went into this record hearing that it was quite good from a few sources of mine from the internet. But I didn't get a gauge as to what kind of music it was. So I'm starting thinking, okay, cool. We're going to be looking at something Death Heaven-y. We're going to be looking at something like an Alcest or an Emperor or Immortal or something like that, with these blackened blast beats and scary screams. But couldn't be anything but the opposite of that. It was like the antithesis of like Sunbather. Whereas Sunbather's beauty came from how dark and evil it felt at times, Endless Blue's beauty comes from how uplifting and how sunbeam across the open plain it feels. It is a gorgeous album. It is absolutely spectacular. Very easily a top 5 of the year material for me, and I was just blown away by it and couldn't be more surprised by this album if I tried, and I just keep coming back to it. I'm still obsessed with it, even like now almost a month after it came out. I still keep coming back to it. It's a nice, easy to listen to 39-minute long record. You don't have to put a whole bunch of time aside for it or anything like that, but it is just so beautiful, and I just want more people to listen to it. I love it so much, and I am going to champion it from the rooftops for all time. I adore this record.
Yeah, I immediately went out and bought this record, so I'm just waiting for the Bandcamp
nice
to come on by, because like I saw the the cover, and it's like this blue whale that's being like dissected, and I'm like, oh, are we going to get some like Gojira's flying whales, or are we going to get some Mastodon's Leviathan? And I'm expecting this big dirge, and it's just like, this is just very atmospheric, very ethereal, very beautiful, like post-rock. It was such a bait and switch for me that it took 2 or 3 listens to kind of get the flavor, because I was expecting milk and I got orange juice.
That's it. That's exactly it.
Yeah.
It's a gorgeous album.
It's gorgeous.
There we go. Exactly. It is something I would thoroughly recommend to anybody who's looking to have their expectations completely thrown out the window by what they look at on the outside. And it's the best example I can think of never judge a book by its cover.
That thing has to come with a poster.
It really does.
I would love
Yeah.
a wall scroll of that in my house so much because I think it's one
Yeah.
of those. I think for me, as far as like album artwork goes, it's number one, and I
Yeah.
don't think anything else this year will beat it in terms of just how beautiful I find that artwork. It's just love it.
So good.
Ian, you should have an alter ego just so you can have 2 top 5s.
Don't tempt me.
It's getting really
Yes, we'll
crowded
bring
for
back
you.
Ian, my
We'll
evil
bring back Ian.
nemesis. He's coming back. He's got his
He's
little
coming back.
handlebar. He's gonna come back
Yeah.
with his Lemmy mustache, you know.
Yeah. Oh, that's
Because the
so
amount
good.
of times you said this is going to be top 5,
I
I'm like,
know, I know.
that's not 5. That's more than 5.
I know.
Yeah,
It's like
we're on
17 at
15.
this point. Yeah, exactly. Do you know, I'm agonizing over the top 10. It's gonna be so.
Oh boy, it's gonna be fun.
Yeah.
Oh boy, amazing. Travis, what was a surprise album for you this quarter?
I didn't really have any big surprises this quarter. There wasn't really a new release I listened to where I said, like, holy crap. Although I did move one of the ones from my favorites into this category just because it is a bit of an outlier just in the genre in general, and that's the new Voyager record, Fearless in Love.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's an outlier because you don't really associate the terms feel good summer record and progressive metal. Like those two don't really associate very well with one another, but somehow Fearless in Love is exactly that. It's a feel good summer record from a progressive metal band. And yeah, what surprised me too is just how far these guys got in that whole Eurovision thing. Like, Dreamer didn't really make much of a wave, but Promise just like blew the doors down for progressive metal. Like that might have been one of the biggest like mainstream moments for progressive metal since like Pull Me Under back in the day. And it warmed my heart so much to see how much people were really loving Voyager. And I really, really love this record. Also, I've got to say, really sad about their frontman's cancer diagnosis. In the 1 in a million chance you happen to be watching this, I hope you recover. I hope you get better soon, dude. Because I hope you're able to keep making great music like this. Because if you guys do, you're gonna go far.
Yeah. Oh boy. Yeah, I've been meaning to put out a review for that album. And I think I'll put it in, the 20 albums in 40 minutes because I still want to talk about it. I just keep getting sidetracked. So
It's enormous fun. I that was again one of my surprises for this year because I was surprised about just how accessible and how immediate and how fun it was when that's not normally the sort of things we associate with progressive metal. They were able to really capture the spirit of I don't want to break out the Eurovision card, but they really captured the spirit of Eurovision across the entire record. And whilst obviously this wasn't a record written for Eurovision, obviously not, it feels like that kind of spirit and energy that you can associate with the contest has really been sort of put into that record, and it really does work. And I absolutely love it. I keep coming back to it. I keep spinning Promise and Dreamer because they're just such bobs. Like, good grief, they're so much fun. Absolutely one of the best summer records that I've heard in a long time. Really love it.
Yeah,
Cool.
I'm no dancer, but Dreamer gets me moving.
Right?
Oh boy. So mine, luckily we've already talked about most of them. American Mystic was my top choice, but we had already talked about Romancing the Ether from Hymena. Really, really surprising. But the one that I think surprised me the most was the new Explosions in the Sky record of End. This was a band that I've been following since the early 2000s. Like we're looking at 2003, 2004, and I've been in love with them pretty much since. They were the ones that got me into the whole post-rock movement. But with their last handful of records, like The Wilderness and a couple of the soundtracks that they did, I was kind of off the hype train. And I almost dreaded whenever they put out a new album. So when End came out, I was like, okay, I'll give it a spin, but I don't know how well it's gonna like live up to their past works. And I was pleasantly surprised. Like, it doesn't hold a candle to, you know, the three that I love of The World Is Not a Cold Dead Place, All of a Sudden I Miss Everybody, and Take Care, Take Care, Take Care. But it's definitely the things that I loved about Explosions in the Sky brought back into the fold. So this was the one that really surprised me, and I could say that this was an actual, like, a good record from Explosions in the Sky, which I couldn't say with their past 2 or 3 releases. So yeah, this got me back on the hype train, and I'd be excited to hear anything new from the band. Well, yeah.
Wow, there's a band I haven't listened to in a long time.
Right? So yeah. Does anybody else have any other surprises before we wrap up with what we're looking forward to in the little quick last session?
Just want to give a quick shout out to the record Newman by Alkaloid. It feels like it's been a long time since I heard their debut. If you're into anything like Parallax 2 by Between the Buried and Me, get in on this. It is really good, but it's 70 minutes long, and it's taken me a while to pick it apart and really digest how I feel about it. But generally speaking, very, very positive, incredible prog metal, really great stuff, especially if you like things like the sort of sci-fi themed stuff. It's kind of like if you blended Parallax with The Signal Heard from Beyond Space by Parias from the other year, but like a much heavier, more darker, more sort of angular version of that. So not necessarily to everyone's taste, but mucho bueno, loving it, loving it, loving it, and looking forward to going back and exploring it more.
Which one is that one again?
Newman by Alkaloid.
Newman by
Newmen. Excellent, excellent record. If you've got any sort of interest, like I say, in that sort of like quasi death metal, proggy kind of sci-fi-ish sort of thing, then you'll get a jam out of it. It's really good.
I do.
Yeah, I really liked Unitopia's record, Seven Chambers.
Yes.
Was one I liked a lot. Just really cool, classic, you know, symphonic, neo-prog type stuff, but really quirky, some epics towards the end. So I thought there was a lot of interesting material on that one.
Yeah, and I didn't realize that Chester Thompson is on the drums on that one, from Tower of Power and touring drummer for Genesis.
Yeah, definitely cool. Super cool.
Yeah. All right, let's end this off really quickly with what we are excited for in the last 3 months. We can rapid fire this. Does anybody have one? I can go really quickly first because I've only got 2 that I'm super excited for.
Okay.
Finally having Peter Gabriel's I.O. Be released. I mean, we practically have it now. We're just missing 2 songs. But the other one I think we're all excited for is Moon Safari.
Yeah.
I think that's the one that we're all big and excited for.
Yeah. That's my late game album of the year contender right there.
Yeah, I'm saving 2 spots for Moon Safari, and then finally Fido's new album.
That's due out this year, isn't it?
Yeah. So those are what I'm really excited for the last 3 months.
Okay. I'm looking forward to the new King Gizzard.
It's sounding good.
It's sounding like it's going to be like I've heard. Yeah, there we go. I've heard the first single, and it's pretty epic. It's not what I thought it would be either, which is really cool. Like I'm really digging the sound they're going for with it. I'm not going to spoil it if nobody wants to hear it, but it sounds like it's going to be a ride. I mean, every King Gizzard album is a ride. This one sounds like it's going to take you on a journey.
I was going to say, the only time I'm surprised at what new record they put out is if it's something that I've already heard before. It's like, oh, this is shocking. It's a sound that I've already heard from King Gizzard. You know?
What, they've made another thrash metal record?
Well, I
wouldn't turn it down if they did.
And that was the only reason why I was a little disappointed for the KGLW sequence, because I'm like, if I look at it as one project, I love it, but it's like, we had so much of it. I want the new stuff. Give me something I haven't heard before. you know.
But then there's songs like Intrasport or something like
Oh,
that.
I love
on-
Intrasport.
where
Okay,
it's
okay,
like-
you caught me. You caught me. You caught me.
Yeah, I'm always here for King Giz.
Yeah.
Little fanboy status, but I am foregoing listening to the singles thanks to you, Notes. So
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. I've caught flavors of what to expect, but I've already pre-ordered it, so I'm committed, whatever it is. You know. Oh boy.
Yeah, a couple for me maybe.
Mhm.
Pattern Seeking Animals coming
Oh,
up.
yeah.
Spooky Action at a Distance.
yeah.
Sweet.
Looking forward to that.
Really
When
cool.
is that?
Really, it's coming out end of October. October 27th is what I
Yeah,
have.
it's like 2
All right.
weeks.
So,
Nice.
yeah, pretty
Excited for
coming
that.
up pretty soon. And then DiVirgilio Morrison Jennings.
Oh, yes.
Sophomore release.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
I'm
yeah.
excited for that.
I heard that new single. I was tempted not to, but then I listened to it and I was, oh, I love it so much.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
so good.
Just really great folk rock music, you know,
Mhm.
classic stuff. And then the record next to me here that just came out, Advent Horizons.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah.
Sell
yeah,
the
yeah.
Call Home, which is technically this final quarter. So
Yeah, it
Yeah.
counts
Love
as
it.
next quarter. It's fine.
Yeah.
You
I'm,
can look forward
I'm
to talking
on-
about it on the next video.
Yeah,
I was gonna say
exactly.
I'm on my second spin of it already, so I've been loving it.
It's really good.
Really good.
Yeah.
Amazing.
I've got a few.
Yeah, go for
Actually,
it.
quite a few. I was actually surprised how many I've got. Stuff that's literally recently come out. The new Sufjan Stevens album is really good. Really good. Javelin. If anybody's not listened to that yet, you're just sort of like the sort of singer-songwriter side of things. Oh my god! Especially, I'm not going to spoil the background, but when you learn the background, it is heartbreaking. It is absolutely heartbreaking. It's one of the very few records that has genuinely reduced me to a blubbering mess of tears after I listened to it and learned the backstory behind it. Really worth looking into if you're even slightly interested in singer-songwriter stuff. It's incredible, absolutely incredible. With stuff that's due to be coming out, is there anything else this month? Probably. November, we've got a new Angra record, which feels like I haven't heard that name in 1,000 years, which is really cool. They're still making content. Earthside's new record, of course, the
Oh,
Let You Speak.
yeah.
Again, another late game
Forgot about
potential
that.
album of the year for me. Very exciting. And of course, Dolly Parton's Rockstar. Unironically,
Yes.
actually
Oh,
quite
yeah.
excited for that. You know?
Yep.
Like, I think that's going to be so much fun, and I'm really looking forward to hearing it. And for me, a little bit self-indulgent, Panopticon's new record, The Rhyme of Memory, which is very much like sort of like a one-man band black metal project kind of thing. Very much steeped in deep Americana style stuff. Really, really love it. Obviously that's the name of an old ISIS record, Panopticon, but it's kind of like this one-man band thing, and he's done some incredible stuff over the years. So I'm really excited to see what he comes out with again for that.
I knew it. I knew there was an ISIS connection there.
Yeah. I mean, that record is absolute fire. Let's not try and pretend otherwise. It's one of the best post-metal records ever made. It's so good.
Absolutely.
Yeah, big fan of that band. One of the few bands with a flawless discography, as far as I'm concerned. They just never put out a bad record. But yeah, I've still got quite a few things to be looking forward to, and of course, anything that comes out which is like a big surprise or whatever is always a welcome thing as well.
I've got two more to add to my list that I'm just going to rattle them off rapidly. The release dates aren't confirmed, so they might not even come out the next quarter, but the new Moron Police with Pachinko and Pain of Salvation, working title, Tales from the Deep End.
Okay.
I'm definitely looking forward to new Pain of Salvation. That's probably not coming out this year, but if it does, awesome. Same with the Moron Police record. Like I'm up for new Moron Police.
Yeah, I'm so excited. I forgot they were a thing. I was like, oh yeah, Pachinko. Yeah, I forgot about that.
Love that one.
Excited.
Amazing. Well, that brings this one to a close. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in. If you've made it this far, congratulations. I think this one is the longest one. I'm just clocking just over 2 hours. So
hell yeah.
It looks like this was a great quarter.
It was a very good one.
Thank you to our panelists, Matt, Nathan, Ian, and Trav. I've linked all of their channels down below that you can go and follow them. And I think we'll see you in the next one. Is there anything anybody wants to add as a little farewell?
Good.
All
Stay in school, kids.
right.
I don't know. We'll go with that. Why not? It's wholesome.
Why
We'll
not?
go with that.
Stay in school. You know, we're getting closer to the mid semester to end semester, so you got this. You got this.
Eat your
Yeah.
vegetables, eat your school, stay in drunk.
Oh boy. So thank you everybody for tuning in on this overly long but very productive. I've got a bunch of homework, as I think we all do. And we'll catch everybody in the next one. So yeah, we'll call this one ended. And Notes and everybody around here, we are out. Oh, wrong button.